Hello everybody, welcome back to Kubernetes videos. On this lab, we're going to install Prometheus on an existing Kubernetes cluster. First of all, what is Prometheus? Prometheus is your default open source solutions for alerting and metric collection from your cluster. So unless you're using some expensive product like Datadog or something like that, this would be the way to go. Tons of company use this in production, no issues. So I tried to do this on Minikube on my local Mac, but it failed because it didn't. It failed for different reasons. But I think part of the reason was it's not up to date and it's also not powerful enough to run Prometheus. When I tried to run this on GKE, the first time it failed because I only have one node cluster, and that node only had 2 cores. So when I ran the deployment for Prometheus, the pods were in pending state, which is a good interview question, by the way. When pending means it doesn't have any good node to put it on. So when I did a describe command on the pod, it said it's because there wasn't enough CPU. So I recreated the cluster with 4 cores, and that solved the problem. So let's get started. And by the way, all of these instructions and whatnot are always in the description in my videos, so you shouldn't have to take any notes because they'll all be in the description. All right, let's get started. So we're going to just follow this page here, and I already have it open in my Chrome browser. So let's get started with those steps. So first, it's asking me to check for what privilege I have. It will do it again, so I don't need to do that again. Do that at first. So I'm going to skip that step. Then it's going to automatically get the Google account into a variable. And so that's already in there. So I don't want to show you that because that's the user ID for my login into Google Cloud, but it has it. And it's going to use that in the next step where it's going to create a role binding that goes with that particular account. So that is created. Next step we're going to do is going to now check for check that I have enough privileges to do all the things that I want to do to get this installed. So as you can see, I have access to cluster admin on the GKE. All right, so that's that step. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to clone the repo. I already did that, so I'm going to show you that. CD repos, CD public, CD star. So this is the copy of the repo that's they're talking about here. So this is already done. I already cloned that repo here, and I can do an ls to show you the files. Now it's going to have me create a special namespace in the cluster. By the way, let me show you the cluster that I have. Okay, get nodes, and I believe I can do k describe node, this node here, just to show you that I have enough. Okay, I didn't like that. I did. Okay, this not describe. And hopefully it shows me what kind of capacity it has, right? So if I do that, CPU, that's how much being used, 14%. But I wonder if it tells me how much CPU it actually has to begin with. Lots of details. I don't see it right off the bat. Oh, there you go. CPU, 4 CPUs. There you go. So that's what you need. It's not going to work if you have 2. All right. So now I'm going to create the namespace where all the deployments are going to go. Create it. I can confirm that by doing k-get ns. So there's all these namespaces. One of them is the one I just created 4 seconds ago. All right. Now we need to go into the directory, which I already am. And these are the files we're going to need. All right. Moving forward, we're going to create the role inside the namespace that we need. That is created. Then we're going to create some config maps in the same namespace. And all those configs are coming from these YAML files. All right, now we're going to create the deployment. Last time, this is where it failed because I didn't have enough CPU power on that node. So now if I do kget deploy in all namespaces, I can see that in this namespace, there is a deployment called Prometheus deployment. It's showing 0 of 1. That's concerning because, okay, now it's 1 to 1. This means how many pods are required and how many are running. Now 1 is running. If I do kget pod minus n for namespace, I should see 1 pod running for Prometheus. And there's that running. All right. I can even get the logs from that if I want. K logs pod this. Okay, I don't need the word pod in there. I think all I need is the pod's name. Oh, I need to give it namespace because by default it looks into default namespace, and this is not, it's not in that namespace. So if I do that, I get all the logs, but all the stuff it did. And I'm not going to go through that, but you get the idea that you can find out what the pod is doing by looking at the logs. All right, we did that. We got the pods. Now what's going to do is the author of this article is telling you that in the service file, he or she is using load balancer type service, because if you do that, eventually you get an external IP that we're going to hit to get to our Prometheus UI. All right, so now we create the service of load balancer type using that YAML file. Okay, now if I do kget svc minus a, that means give me all the services in all the namespaces. You see in here under external IP, it says pending. It takes a good 2-3 minutes to get an IP address. So to make life easier, we're just going to do minus n. So we only look at one service. And I still don't have an IP. What it's doing is going ahead and using GCE IP service is gonna grab a static IP, public static IP for me, and it's gonna cost me money, probably a few cents per hour or something like that. But that's what it does. That's what takes the time. All right, now we have the IP address. So now we should be able to go into this IP address and that port 8086 that is as the service is showing. Now I am looking at the UI for Prometheus running in the GK cluster. Sure, whatever, doesn't matter. So now we're just going to run through the menus. There's a table, there's a graph, I don't know what that means. Alerts is giving me an alert of a high pod memory. So this one of the pods is using too much memory. Which one is it? Alert name high priority, severity slack, firing. This is the time. Time is 16, February 16 here. But which pod is it? Okay, it's not letting me do that. That's fine. Oh, it's giving me a query here. All right, that didn't help me at all. So let's go to alerts again. iPod memory. Sum of container memory usage bytes. I guess it's a sum of all pods memory. Anyway, you get the idea. So that's for alerts. That's where the alerts are going to come from. Graphs. We don't see any. I guess we'll have to add some expressions to get the graph. Status. This is where I got some good information last time. It gives me all kinds of information about Prometheus itself. It also gives me the endpoint, by the way, endpoint of the alert manager under that service. TSDB. This is where the data. So it has a database of some sort in the backend to store all the information, and you get the status of that database here. Now, I'm not sure if there's anything useful here to look at. 10 series, label names. Nothing that I can explain anyway. All right, That's database. Command line flags. I don't know what that's all about. Rules. This is the place where you got the YAMLs from. So they gave us, basically in the default setting, it gave us a rule for checking for memory, which is why we got the memory alert. So that's pretty cool. So I'm sure there are templates we can plug into an existing Prometheus installation to get other errors and metrics. That's how it works. Targets. Basically, these are all the things monitoring in the cube state metrics. Not sure what that's the endpoint. I don't know what that endpoint is. Oh, API server. It's monitoring the API server that in Kubernetes. CA advisor, something with certificates, I think. I'm not sure. Nodes, monitoring the node. And so last script, you see it tells you when the last time you got the data from the node, 1.8 seconds ago. It's checking the pods, it's checking endpoints. These are all the things it's monitoring, right? Let's see, service discovery, and it tells you what services are running. These are all the services. We should be able to get the same services here, right here. If you see in my command in the shell window, you will see all the services: HTTP backend, DNS, metrics servers, metrics, API servers. They're not matching, so it's probably part of what Prometheus itself is doing. But anyway, we can always add more targets and endpoints and whatnot to monitor, but you get the idea. So anyway, again, today what we covered is how to install Prometheus on your GKE Kubernetes cluster and how to log in, but there's no authentication here, but how to go to the UI to look at stuff that it pulled up for you. The reason why it's important is because this is the default open source tool for monitoring and alerting from Prometheus, from Kubernetes cluster that you might have. Tons of companies use this. All right. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. That helps me with YouTube's algorithm. And I will see you in the next Kubernetes video.